Good evening, Darren. Yes, it's glad to have you. I'm very glad to have you. It's glad to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator is with us. I would like to welcome him in his introduction. This is Mr. Darren. That's right. Mr. Darren is having over 10 years of experience in quality assurance with 5 in the actual implementation of ISO check requirements in Uganda's construction industry. He's a seasoned project management professional involving in the construction of 2 of Uganda's largest hydropower plants, authored technical paper and publications on quality assurance, and ISO management systems. He has been involved in the gap analysis, design, implementation, testing, and certification readiness of an ISO integrated management system for a multi-site power generation facility. Wonderful. We talked about different fields contributing to the ISO standards. This is in practice. He serves as an advisory board member of CASO Technical School, where he superheads to integration of shared aspects into the day-to-day activities of the institute. The standards are meant to serve you by making your life better. Quality culture starts from home. Without wasting any more time, Darren, you're most welcome. I'll be passing through the slides. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good evening to all our participants. Like introduced, my name is Darren Mokwanason. I am a very enthusiastic quality professional, and I'm so glad to be before you, our participants from Kenya, Tanzania, the UAE, here in Uganda. I also love your commitment to improving the way we live. So from the start of the week, we're attempting to design the integrated management system for Pride Distribution Limited. And we are now at the tail ends to talk about the future, which is performance evaluation and improvement. The next slide, please. And then also to let our participants know, I am having a technical challenge, which I may use as a case study for maybe some subsequent awareness. So on my end, I'm following using a soft copy PowerPoint. And so if you're on slide number 2, that is my profile as introduced. I'm a seasoned quality assurance professional in fields where implementation of these clauses may be a little bit abstract. In construction, you look at the consultants, the clients, implementation becomes a bit interesting. I have a master's in international construction management and engineering, Bachelor of Science in Motor Resources Engineering. I've done some total quality management implementation for small companies. And I'm also a lead ISO auditor for 9001, 14001, 45001, and 55,001 for asset management. Yes, I believe that the standards are meant to make our life better. So it shouldn't be a struggle implementing them. But then also, most importantly, quality begins from home. So it's from home that we should embody all the things we are preaching today. Next slide, please. Slide 3 should be our outline or expectations for the day. We are looking at 2 clauses, performance evaluation and then improvement. So at the end of the day, we shall see how Prime Distributions Limited does their evaluation of the processes. We look at some sample evidence and indicators. Then there is also the customer satisfaction and then the environmental and safety compliance. From there, we shall switch over to the improvement side, where we look at the non-conformities, the closure, corrective actions, effectiveness, and then, of course, the root cause analysis. Next slide, please. So for those who joined all the way from Monday, we are doing awareness and also simplifying the implementation and understanding of these standards using Prime Distributors Limited. Well, Prime Distributors Limited is an East African company which has been plagued with a few issues: customer complaints, near misses, things to do with environment, And as such, their top management made a very strategic decision to implement the integrated management system because of the, for now, say, purported benefits of the implementation. And so, for the context, we shall look at all the processes that are charged with them, and what they primarily do is importation and procurement. That's a process. They receive, inspect products, they warehouse, so there's some inventory management. Then they repackage, label, and do some product kitting, order processing, then dispatch and distribution. So that is the main process or value chain. It's good to note that the products we are looking at include the MROs, or the industrial maintenance products. There's cleaning and hygiene products, the facility and building maintenance products, and of course, some associated customer service and supporting processes. It is a multi-site company or organization headquartered in Nairobi. Then we have the main warehouse in Mombasa. And then depots are distributed all over East Africa. That's Nakuru, Eldoret, Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Entebbe, and Kampala. And so the market coverage is still East African predominantly. And then for the exclusion, because here now we're talking about the scope, we didn't have any major exclusions from the clauses from 8.5.2 on design, which was selectively applied. Down there, you can see the commitment, which is more like a condensed policy towards quality, environment, and safety. Next slide, please. Slide 5 is a recap of what we went through yesterday. Nashon gave us a very good presentation on Clause 8, which is all about operations. So with operations, remember, we are now designing an integrated management system. So he looked at the clauses in the quality. Those, as you can see here, we have the process flow, including the operational planning, all the way to customer feedback. And then he also gave some insights on the clauses in 14,001, which is environment management, things to do with emergency preparedness, and then also in safety, emergency drills, evaluation of external providers, procurement, and so many others. The reason we do this reflection is because when you're implementing the standard, it's not implemented in silos. So one clause leads to another. And by yesterday, we had finished all the doing. That means implementing all the things we thought we would do as planned. And now going forward, next slide, please. We are now at the check phase. So having done, right now we just want to check whether what we did was as per the plan. And then what happens if what we did was not as planned? And what happens if what we did was as planned, or if what we did was actually better than planned? So as you can see in Clause 4 on Monday, Gladys took us through the context of the organization, which I've just briefly explained. There is a Clause 5 on leadership. And that's why we applaud Pride Distributors Limited for taking this strategic decision to integrate their management system. And in there, they give commitment in terms of policy, roles, responsibilities, and most importantly, consultation and participation of workers. Then having done the planning under Clause 6, that's where we look at the changes, planning of changes. Then what we shall also need very, very importantly is the objectives and the planning to achieve them. This is where we set out objectives. Then the plan was resourced with the cars, the infrastructure. You saw we have warehouses, we have the depots, we have the fleet management, and then there's also the document control, which is on the administrative side of resourcing the plan, as well as communication. Had a recap on Clause 8. So today, we shall be looking at Clause 9 and 10. So our presentation is in two parts, but we shall first start with the checking. And the things we check, first we need to know what we are checking, how we are checking, why we are checking, what to do with the results we've obtained, and then how to evaluate them. Then thereafter, since we are integrating 3 standards, clause 9.1.2 in the 9001 is more inclined towards customer satisfaction. So we shall look at how customer satisfaction is evaluated. Now in 45,000 and 14,000, like you already saw, these 2 standards are predominantly compliance-based, simply because for 45 in safety, looking at Pride Distributors Limited obligations towards the safety of its workers. So they have to comply. Then on the flip side, you have the Environmental Management System Standard 14,001, which also tasks Pride Distributors Limited to comply with the environmental stipulations. Having done that, checking on the customer satisfaction and the compliance, we delve into an internal audit. So the monitoring and measurement is looking at results. Oh, this result is good, this one is bad. And now the internal audit looks at all the processes. Which process is giving us this bad result? And which process is giving us this good result? How can it be improved? And then lastly, it's management review. And that's where top management reviews everything that we've done before to that point of management review. Next slide, please. That should be the layout of clause 9, performance evaluation. Just a thumbs up if that's where we are. 1 thumbs up, Friday energy, perfect. Thank you, thank you. Now, the things we've been preaching before are made possible because of the high-level structure. And the high-level structure was meant to align the requirements of the standard for the different clauses. For example, for monitoring and measurement, the requirements are the same. What may change is the what. Here, we are looking at customer satisfaction. On the other side, we are looking at compliance to, say, water abstraction. On the other side, we are looking at compliance to the provisions of the OSH Act, safety committees, and the like. So at the end of the day, the benefit of this is that it gives us a holistic approach towards customer satisfaction. Remember, Gladys mentioned on Monday that we not only look at the external customers, but we're also looking at the internal customers. So the internal customers are our staff. And then for the analysis and evaluation, that is still constant throughout. What changes is the what. And then finally, the internal audit. We shall delve deeper into that. And now, also the bit about the integration is that you find some clauses are more dominant in some standards than the other. So that way, if you aim to implement the most dominant requirement, automatically you cover the other requirements. So there is an explicit subclause in 14,000 and 45 on an internal audit program. And then lastly, the management review meeting. So as you can see, we don't necessarily need to have, say, 3 separate dashboards for performance evaluation. Just one showing the highest risk performance indicators, and then the tools, the responsibilities, the what we shall be measuring, and then the how and the frequency. Next slide. Yes, so performance evaluation. In a nutshell, the standard requires us to monitor, measure, analyze, evaluate its quality, safety, and environment performance. Ideally, performance is a measurable result. And that's why previously we've been talking of bad and good. The outcome of the result may be good or bad. And now when it comes to, say, like customer satisfaction, that is a perception. So some of it may be qualitative, whereas the other may be quantitative. How many trucks have you dispatched? How many injuries have you recorded? And things like that. So we have the quantitative and then the qualitative. And then, of course, the implementation of the standard usually has a mix or blend of either quantitative or qualitative as appropriate. Then the other keyword we wanted to define is monitoring. And monitoring is all about determining the status of a system, process, product, service. So when you're monitoring, the definition alone requires of you to come up with the frequency, come up with the particulars or indicators of the things you're monitoring, and then also the tools you'll be using. And the infographic down there explains just exactly what performance evaluation is all about. So you start with what. For example, we are going to look at injuries or safety incidents. Then the how. Yes, so this is it's a simple check. Wanted it to be a bit interactive. And I wanted to know from you, what are some of the performance indicators that you are monitoring in your role at your organization? And you could drop those in the chat. Yes, you could drop those in the chat. For now, I don't have access to the chat as well.
Yeah, I think let's have the engagements in the chat.
Okay. The next slide.
We have 76 participants. I request us to engage in the chat. Our performance are you in your role at organization? I can see Michael says TIs. We have accident rate. We have incident rates. Let's keep the engagements coming in. We have someone say number of near misses, first aid cases, number of meetings, lagging and leading indicators. Those are the so far the engagements I have. We also have someone saying the lost time injury frequency trainings, production yield, training completion rate according to the plan, BBS, product performance, microbiology analysis fails. Wow. We also have environment incidents, energy consumption, number of toolbox stocks, customer complaints, and return products.
Wow, that's.
I think Darren can proceed from there. Yes, as we keep having the engagements coming in.
Okay, that's fantastic. And of course, these are all potential areas that Pride Distributors Limited could monitor. The next slide, please. Are we on the customer satisfaction slide?
Yes, sure, we are on the customer satisfaction slide.
Okay, so I'd briefly hinted on customer satisfaction, and it's very important for us to understand what customer satisfaction exactly is and how Pride Distributors Limited should or can implement it vis-a-vis the requirements of the standard. So like I said, customer satisfaction is a perception of the degree to which the needs of a customer have been fulfilled. The reason it's a perception is because sometimes it's qualitative, and sometimes you may not receive the feedback from the customer. And that's why the standard requires us to have well-defined methods for not only obtaining, but monitoring and then reviewing these perceptions. And some of them at Pride Distributors Limited, as you heard yesterday from Nashon, we're having complaints on delayed deliveries, having issues to do with incorrect orders, things to do with damaged products. These are all things that ultimately affect our customer. And the rule of thumb, as we all know, is that the customer is the boss, or the client is the boss. And there's a saying that the customer is the only person who can fire the entire organization, including, say, the CEO, simply because they may just decide to change a distributor, and before you know it, you run out of business. And I'd also wanted to briefly run through the examples of monitoring. The most common one is the customer surveys, where you send out feedback forms. Of course, they should follow a proper methodology. You look at the things you're going to evaluate, how you're going to collect the feedback from the customers, and then how you're going to improve that. Then there is the typical one, like we've seen up there, the one on delivered products. Some are damaged, some are delayed, and of course, sometimes the services. But also, one thing that is increasingly happening, we're having more meetings with customers. You've heard of, say, forums being implemented or being planned to reach out to a broader net of our customers. So the market share analysis may be another way of understanding the perceptions of your customer. It may not be direct, but it could give you an indication. If at all people are no longer taking our paint orders, that may shrink our market share, and that speaks volumes. Then one thing we rarely follow up is compliments. And this is synonymous to that paradox of risks and opportunities, where companies mainly focus on the risks and end up ignoring the opportunities. So when it also comes to customer satisfaction, we usually focus so much on the complaints and the claims, but then we forget the compliments. And of which the compliments are also an indicator of something we are doing good, which can be standardized to improve the way we are doing things. Next slide, please. That should be the evaluation of compliance. Like I said, 14,001, or the safety management system and the environmental management system. These standards are to help the organization comply with the regulatory requirements, and then also other stipulations that regard the environment, and then also the staff. And like I said, we are just changing focus on what is being measured, but the rest of the requirements should be maintained. So the frequency, the required action, and then the need to maintain knowledge and understanding of the compliance status. The most used tool is usually a register. It's a compliance register where you dissect the requirements in the stipulations in, say, the Employers Act. There are those in the OSH Act. There are those in the Environmental Management Authorities Acts, and any other that may speak to the environment and safety. So for this, we are looking at compliance. Pride Distributors Limited is a corporate citizen, so it has an obligation to play. And of course, these are usually enforced through our policies as well. Next slide, please. And that should be the specific evaluation requirements. Are we all there? Okay, so for evaluation, in a nutshell, this is what it would look like. You're not only focusing on your customer perceptions, what are the clients saying, what are the customers saying, but you're also reflecting inside, looking at your employees. Remember, there is a requirement of engaging the employees, that is consultation and participation of the workers, and then as well as your legal and other compliance requirements. The one thing that we shall keep on repeating is that the ISO standards are ideally voluntary. But now that Pride Distributors Limited has taken a major strategic step to get certified, then it becomes mandatory. And that's why we are coming on board to check and see whether they are ready for certification and how we can design a management system that is appropriate to their context. And so the outcome of clause 9 would be, this is where the value is. It would be fulfilling customer expectations, that you have return business, you have a good reputation, you increase your market share, all the risks we're looking at in clause 6, the brand. And then on the flip side, you're also looking at confidence to the customers, regulators. So you have all your permits in place. You're not chasing only the production and then coming back to face very heavy penalties because of a mere breach. So the holistic implementation of the standards helps the company grow in the proper way. Next slide, please. So you should be looking at an infographic on ISO 9001. Like I said, the things we mentioned are ideally what we measure. And so having or aligning yourself to the standard doesn't mean that you're going to do anything outside the ordinary. The only thing that changes is the structured way of reporting, monitoring, measuring, analyzing, and evaluating to give confidence to not only top management, if you're internal staff, if you're the company, confidence to the customers that what you're doing can always meet their requirements. So for 9001, we talked about the tracking of trainings completed here at Pride Distributors Limited. Order accuracy is one of the things we track. We talked about damaged products. There is supplier performance, because they play a very big role in our value chain. Then, of course, the returns and non-conforming products. And then the customer complaints, those ones we fairly address them. The on-time delivery. And as you can see, these are a mix of lagging and leading indicators. And so when we are selecting or designing which things to monitor, we usually take on a risk-based approach to ensure that we pick out those that may potentially affect the delivery of a service. When we focus on those, it is easier for us to present data for which management can use to make informed decisions. Next slide. Still for the occupational health and safety, it's nothing outside this world. So before certification, Pride Distributors Limited has been having safety controls. They've been having their safety issues, and they've been fairly trying to address them. But now that we're designing an integrated management system, we have to follow the high-level structure. So we provide and tailor all these controls and the performance areas you're seeing in accordance with the standard. So the forklift near misses, that is a performance indicator. The hazard reports, the unsafe conditions, corrective actions closed, training compliance, like we had, I think, indicated in the chart. And then lastly, to look at the environment. And that's the beauty about these standards. For example, in most, what usually happens in companies is that there's usually the top management bias. If you find the top management is more inclined towards operations, then their dashboard will be filled with performance and operational things. Then they neglect, say, the health and safety, and then the environment. With the standards, you must have a balanced approach towards implementation of your management system. And then it's also very key to note that, like we saw for the environment and safety, you find more issues to track at the depots and the warehouses than, say, the head office. So as we are designing, we're supposed to be very alive to the context and the scope of our integrated management system so that we assign performance indicators that will bring out the best value. Because remember, at the end of the day, we want to provide as much value to management as possible so that we can continually improve. Yes, I would request maybe you take us through, and then the participants, feel free to drop your responses in the chat.
Thank you so much, Darren. To our lovely participants, we are over 82 on. Yes. Just a quick check based on our performance evaluation. What is the main purpose of performance evaluation under IMS Clause 9 at Prime Distributors Limited? Remember, Prime Distributors is our case study that we've been using. So A, to investigate every incident and implement corrective action. B, to collect performance data mainly for external auditor. C, to determine whether the IMS is achieving intended results and identify areas requiring action or improvement. I see already answers C coming in. Forgive me for D, I'm trying to get to read it. It's just that my screen is not allowing the down part. But I can see most of the people are actually saying C, 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 C. Yes, so far I have answered C. Yeah, currently have answered C. What are the rest of us saying? So most of us are saying to determine whether the IMS is achieving the intended results and identify areas requiring action or improvement. Let's keep the engagements coming on. Shamim, you say you don't see the slide for environment monitoring. However, we are currently actually on the performance evaluation check. So you could kindly just confirm with that, because we are trying to check if we have been able to get all the answers. Yes, let's keep our engagements coming in. Darren, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanna, for that session. Yes, and I'm glad people are following. So, like we said, performance is all about measurable result, and the result is only an indicator of something. And whatever the result is, bad or good, with the management systems, there's a framework on how we treat them. And ideally, that indicates or signals to us that this is an area, first of all, where we need to take action, or where we need to improve if at all it's a bad result. So next slide, which should ideally reveal the correct answer. And what we are looking at is trying to understand how we are performing, and of course, looking at the evidence, and then the things that need attention. Next slide, please, on the common pitfalls and best practices.
Yes, we're good to go.
All right, so I'll go through, these are just 4 of the common ones, at least I've personally encountered. Pitfall 1 is poor calibration or verification of measuring tools. Remember, we have the ISO 14001 implementation and things to do with measurements, water quality, the noise, and the others. Greatly depend on equipment. So the equipment would be the meter. But if you're using an uncalibrated equipment, that means you'll ideally get a wrong result. So in as much as you're presenting results to top management, if at all the equipment is not calibrated, then the system is not working. And so for this very one, what usually auditors look out for is the calibration schedules of our equipment. Remember, we cannot improve what we can't measure. And also, if you're measuring poorly, then that would be even worse. So ideally, must have, say, maintain a calibration or verification program for all our monitoring devices. This clause 9 is on monitoring. Then there's also an issue of too many performance indicators. If you have too many performance indicators and they're not, say, aimed through risk, you'll end up overloading top management with results. And now the challenge with that is that there could be a tendency to concentrate on the low risk, say, areas, and then somehow ignore or give a little emphasis on the high risk ones. So we are supposed to maintain a focused IMS performance dashboard, which is linked to the objectives and the risks. And that's why I said the implementation of this standard is not a linear or siloed approach. No, it keeps taking you back to where you started from so that you can evaluate or have a baseline of where you are and then how you can move forward. Then there's also overemphasis on the lagging indicators. So in a layman's language, a lagging indicator would be one that is monitored usually after a very long time compared to what is being monitored. So at the end of the day, things have already happened, like the train has already left the station and you're just coming back for post-mortem. For example, the lost time injuries, these ones you monitor after, say, the injuries have already happened, and then you get a score. So we are supposed to balance both leading and the lagging indicators. So for the leading indicators, we'll look at things like, say, training, because the more you train, you're putting a control that can help empower your workers with better hazard identification, better awareness. And in a way, by the time you come to assess your lagging indicator, which is a lost time injury, things would have already been prevented. Then lastly, collecting data but not analyzing trends. Now, this is usually a very, very common pitfall, more so in these management standards. You're collecting the data, you're measuring, and then after that, you just present it as is. That in this quarter, these are the sales we made. And then you move on, go on with your work. In the next quarter, we only had, say, 5 damaged products. So if you're not trending or doing a trend analysis, you will not know whether you're improving or not. So the standard, like we said, it is meant to give you a structured way of doing things. And that way we'll look at the monthly, quarterly trend analysis, the Pareto charts, and then the various variance analysis. At the end of the day, this is meant to give top management confidence that what they are doing, where they are putting their resources, remember in clause 7, is actually going to yield and help them meet their obligations. The next slide, please. Are we on the internal audit program?
Yes, sure, we are.
Yes, then also just to let us know, at this stage, like I said, we are monitoring, measuring, and evaluating. Yesterday, we're done with the doing. It's like when you're in an exam and the invigilator says, pens down, stand up. So that's where we are right now. And we are trying to evaluate how we've been doing. So the previous discussion on clause 9.1 has predominantly been about the results. But remember, these results don't appear from thin air. These results are coming from processes. And as you remember, we have so many processes at prime distributors. We have the sales and customer relationship management, demand planning and procurement, the receiving inspection, the warehousing and inventory, packaging, order processing, the distribution and delivery, customer feedback and complaint management, the returns, non-conforming products and corrective actions across the different departments, finance, IT, SHEC, and the like. So the standard requires us to, first of all, maintain an internal audit program. We say this is very explicit in 14,001 and 45,001. In a way, they are forcing management to do the right things. That is to avert any potential, say, penalties. And then also the internal audit program is where we check the processes, like I said. To that end, we are supposed to check whether what we are doing conforms with the identity of Pride Distributors Limited. Remember at the start, we talked about our commitments to quality, that is customer satisfaction, to employee safety, reducing injuries and ill health, eliminating the hazards, consulting the workers, preserving the environment, climate change, and then also setting objectives. So first of all, the one objective of the internal audit program should be to ensure that what we are doing or what we did now, because yesterday we were done with the doing, what we did was in conformance with the Private Distributors Management System, and then also the ISO requirements, because the two may differ. ISO is generic, but now the price distributors is now custom to what we have. And the key things to note here are the planned intervals. And then also now 9.2.2 requires us to establish, implement, and maintain an audit program with frequency. Now the frequency, I'll first stop there. Frequency refers to how often you do something. And if I told you only implementing one management system, that may be straightforward. With the integration, we still have to do a risk-based audit plan, in that there are some aspects that may need to be monitored more frequently than the others. So as we are designing our audit program, we take note of that. Then the second one is the methods that we are going to deploy in the internal audit or doing the audit. There's another standard on undertaking or auditing management systems, that is 19,011, which has the details on how to undertake the internal audit, the methods used. It could be virtual, it could be physical, desk study, and the like. Then the responsibilities, planning requirements, and the reporting. So whenever you see such a requirement, ideally, it's like it calls for a procedure or a guideline on how to implement these. And now for Prime Distributors Limited, we are supposed to train internal auditors so that they get acquainted with the skills to undertake the audits. Then for the scope of the audits, we are a multi-site company. And like I said, we have depots in Kampala, Entebbe, Arusha, Dar es Salaam, Eldoret, Nakuru, Mombasa, the warehouse, and then Nairobi, the headquarters. So ideally, our program should ensure that no stone is left unturned. So there is plenty of documentation that goes into preparing the internal audit program, but I just wanted to highlight at least the required coverage. And as you can see, all the sites that is on section 1 are being catered for. The head office, and then the activities that are going to be audited, ideally the processes that are sitting at the head office. Leadership, HR, procurement, finance, customer service, then the IMS coordination. So at the head office, it would be unrealistic for you to fill your audit plan with things that are more geared towards, say, the industrial controls for health, safety, and environment. Whereas on the other hand, when you go to the warehouse, now the safety hazards become more predominant. The environmental aspects are very alive. So the internal audit program should be appropriate and tailored to the sections that are going to be audited. In the audit term, that would be the auditees. And of course, we don't stop there. Then we look at the audit frequency. If at all you just roll out one internal audit program, you will execute it, but then you'll be shocked to be given a finding or a non-conformance, simply because it may not be reasonable for you to treat fleet safety at the same with the same criticality as you treat, say, thank you, same criticality as, say, the administrative and support processes. So that way you have your audit frequency framework. And of course, now we are away from the theory or the requirements of the standard, and now we are looking at it in the practical sense. And there are those that would require medium, say, editing or checking, procurement, supplier management. Because in any case, these may also be determined by the turnaround times. You may not monitor or check procurement monthly. It wouldn't be reasonable. And if your frequency is a monthly for procurement or annual for fleet safety, then you'll be having a non-conformance, because it doesn't reflect the requirement or criticality or the risk rating of the process that you're auditing. And then on the right, there's a swim lane on the right that has a partitioned pie chart. So we are having the main, say, focus areas for the quarterly audit. And like I said, the beauty about the integrated management system is that you'll find these link very well with your regulatory reporting requirements. Emergency preparedness, you'll find it's a requirement in the OSH Act. The spill and waste management, you'll find you're required to report quarterly on these things, such that if we report this quarter, we have time to implement the corrective actions and then improve in the next quarter. You remember the leading indicators, as opposed to waiting for a whole year. By the time we get to the close of the year, you may be closed as a business. And of course, the product handling and quality. This is one that drives our customer satisfaction, so we need to monitor it more frequently, as well as the fleet and driver safety. Next slide, please. Yes, like I said, it is required of Pride Distributors Limited to first of all have competent internal auditors. Because remember, under the resources, there is an explicit clause on competence. And so the trained auditors will ensure that you comply with the clause 9.2. And some of the indicators that someone is competent, they'll come up with an audit program that is appropriate to the setting of the company. And then they'll also exercise the audit principles: integrity, fair presentation, due professional care, confidentiality, independence, then also using the evidence-based approach. The evidence-based approach is an interesting one, whereby we don't speculate. You remember yesterday, Nashon said that, okay, said it in Swahili, but it's like, if it wasn't documented, you don't have the evidence, then it wasn't done. Something like that. So for the reporting, it must be backed up by evidence. And the typical process flow for the internal audits at PDL. So you plan the audits, and remember now this is at the implementation stage. So the audits are coming from the program, and are dispatching teams to go to the depots, to go to the head office to do the audits. So you plan the audit, which is of course based on the program, already done the risk-based auditing or planning. We look at the previous results, then we conduct the audit. Conducting the audit is where we now go for objective evidence. And one of the culture that would be very good for management to instill in its workers is to see audit as an improvement tool or as something positive. Because more often than not, the internal audits turn out to be like a witch hunt. Every time they see the internal audit, they're like, now they're after us. Eh? So the risk in there is that they end up hiding the non-conformities or the issues that they are seated on. And then somehow when the certification auditor comes, they come up as heroes. Because for them, they'll try to probe for all these things that are being hidden. Then, of course, we evaluate the findings. A finding is also still neutral. And then it is the objective evidence that makes it maybe conformance or non-conformance. Conformance means you're complying. Yes, you're complying. Then, of course, you report and follow up. And of course, the reports should be to top management. We are done doing. All processes are done doing. Now we are checking ourselves. How effective were we at doing what we intended to do? And that's why the reporting has to go back to top management so they discuss and see how the system is performing. And then lastly, it's a closing and then verification of the corrective actions. So that is the internal audit flow process. And like you'll see, for the audit outcomes, you have the conformity status, the non-conformities, opportunities for improvement, and then the strength. The value is the assurance that the processes are working, risks are controlled, and improvements are identified. To that end, of course, this is a very condensed internal audit program or discussion. I just wanted to know from our participants online, if you have any, just tell us one major challenge you've encountered when implementing internal audits or during the process itself, just one or two. Then we can have a small discussion around that.
Thank you so much, Darren. Over 84 participants. Can we have some, discussions in the chat? What challenges have you been able to encounter as you're having this audit processes? We have awareness of internal audit principles. Thank you so much, Paul, for that. Peter says closing of the CARs and follow up on the CAPs, basically to see that the company is following them up. Michael says departments tend to underestimate internal audits. Audits are often seen as necessary evil other than minors that reflect the performance of an organization. Thank you so much for that. Internal auditors, not motivated. Some want out on internal audits. Yes. Non-compliances from the top. Thank you for that. Failure of commitment from top management to participate. Defensiveness on the part of the auditees. Yes. Fake corrective actions, not being able to differentiate correction and corrective action. So they have requested that you speak more about the difference between the correction and the corrective action. Thank you so much for that. Trust from top management is a big challenge. Delay in closing the non-conformities. Inexhaustible list of requirements or registrars. Thank you so much for that. Let's keep the engagements coming in. Non-conformances are often denied. Yes, people are really talking about the non-conformities. Ignored, being denied. Procurement delays, closing out the findings. Thank you for that. I think, Darren, you could proceed from that. We had a request that you could differentiate between the corrective and corrective action. Correction and corrective action.
Thank you so much. Yes, I see we have a very good attendance. I see Munabi Philip is on. Anthony Wanendea, thank you for the commitment. Robert, Rita, Katushabe, Mirembe, Sakina Wako. So, yes. So all the issues we listed here are usually symptoms, or like we said, indicators of something, an underlying cause. And we shall get to the root cause analysis. And also in the revised ISO 9001, yet to be released in September, realize that there is more emphasis on now, say, the quality culture. So if the audits are meant to help you improve, and of which we all accept that improvement is a good thing, then why should it turn out to be like a tug of war, for lack of a better word? So ideally, what usually happens, top management sets a predefined calendar, and in some companies with a very mature system, and what we are also recommending for the Prime Distributors Limited, is that for the period of the internal audits, every process owner should be present. That means going as far as, say, denying people leave or trainings or assigning them other roles. That is to exert more commitment. Remember clause 5 when we're laying the foundation towards improvement. Then for the issue of correction versus corrective action, I'll use an example. Say at the depot in Kampala, we get a spill of paint. And this has been identified during an audit. And then when they do the investigation, they realize it was to do with the containers in which the paint is being packaged. So for the correction, we are only treating what was identified. This goes the same way for documentation. Say the filling procedure at the depot in Kampala is not, say, standardized. Now, corrective action is where the bigger picture is. For corrective action, you do what we call an extent analysis. So the extent analysis means if it was found in Kampala, what are the chances that's in Eldoret, it's in Entebbe, it's not at the head office in Nairobi or at the warehouse in Mombasa? And now the corrective action is meant, first of all, rule out any such possibility. Where it exists, then we add it on the issues to be treated. Then remember, clearing a correction is straightforward. Now the corrective action would require a root cause analysis. And the root cause analysis looks at why was this document or procedure, filling procedure, not standardized. It could be awareness. And now if it's awareness, then we don't just do awareness at Kampala, but we do awareness all throughout. So next time, if an auditor went to reps, you shouldn't find something already found in Kampala. So in a nutshell, correction is correcting what was identified. Then the corrective action goes beyond that. It looks at the real cause, so to ensure it doesn't reoccur. If it doesn't reoccur, then we are improving. If it reoccurs, then there could be a second chance for us to get it right. All right, now the final up for clause 9, which is management review. Like I said, to this point, all we're doing was to ensure that we're giving management the most correct and accurate information for them to take decisions that improve the management system of Pride Distribution Limited, PL. And the standard now requires us, it has now, like I keep on saying, it's a structured way. So management cannot just sit and say, first we shall only look at production. That's where the money is. We just want money. No. Once you set out to get certified, then you have to follow a standard agenda, which is in clause 9.3 under management review. And so the requirement is for management to undertake management reviews at planned intervals to ensure the continuing suitability, adequacy, and then effectiveness. As you can see from all these keywords, suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness, actions should be taken. Which actions are based on the results we got from the measuring, then the findings we got from the internal audits, why the results were maybe not good, why we're not conforming, why we are not complying. And then that way, we are able to take database decisions. So something I'll mention here very quickly is that for the attendance of the management review meetings is very key. And ideally, top management and all heads of units should, as a must, attend. So similarly to what would recommend for the management to do, say when the internal audit program is rolled out, all leaders of the different, say, processes should ensure they're available. Because at the end of the day, you're the accountable person. You're the one who was assigned these roles and responsibilities under clause 5, if you remember, if you recall Gladys's presentation on Monday. And then that way, we have documented evidence to push, to present, say, for the external audits. And then also would also use this for further implementation. The next slide, please. This is still a compressed infographic for the management review meeting. And it's ideally in 3 parts. So you have the inputs, the management review meeting, then you have the management review meeting itself, and then you have the outputs from the management review. From the management review. And so the management review, like we said, you're now, top management is looking at this design system. Is it really helping us? They should even go as far as asking, do we need it? And of course, from the discussions, we'll get the outputs that should address the things to do with the inputs. And like I said, up until the management review, all we've been doing is planning, bossing, going, monitored. We've checked that the processes can give us a desired result. So it's time to decide. And it's very important for the management review meeting agenda to strictly follow all the clauses in the 3 standards. So we reviewed the monitoring and measurement, like we said, 9.1, customer satisfaction and feedback. This is where it culminates. You have the compliance evaluation results. Then you have the internal audit results. As you can see, these were all precursors to this meeting. Then the status of actions from the previous reviews. If it is your very first, then that would form a baseline of your improvement journey. Then the changes in internal and external issues, happens every now and then. Standards are being reviewed, acts are being amended. Then achievement of objectives. The objectives we set, were they achieved? This is where management gets to discuss. Then performance of external providers. For the truncated version, this is where it ends, but the list in the standards is more detailed. Where you see the OSH, we're also required to review the results from or feedback from the consultation and participation of workers. We're supposed to look at the environmental aspects and what we are doing with them. Then during the meeting, which is the next phase, so ideally for the inputs, we've already looked at the objective evidence that will feed into the inputs. And like we said, if it's not documented, it's like you didn't do it because there's no evidence. And that's why with the management system or these standards, they force the good things on you. So at the end of the day, you can clearly trend your improvement story from so many near misses of the forklift, from so many manual handling injuries, complaints from customers to where you are right now, like we said in the trending. And of course, the trending and analysis of all these issues on the agenda. So during the meeting, it has the standard agenda. Management gets to look through items as per the agenda. Then the outputs are based on decisions for opportunities for improvement, any need for changes to the integrated management system, resource needs, revised objectives and targets, actions to address risks, then improvement priorities. And I'll still repeat, that's why we need to treat the monitoring as a very critical exercise. So for the auditors who are masquerading, internal auditors, who are masquerading, those who are giving fake findings, you're not doing the company a service, even yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. If we hide these findings or issues, it may end up into an incident. Then an incident, someone loses their life. So it should be treated with that much commitment. Everything we are providing management is for them to make data-driven decisions for improvement. Then lastly, now we shall look at the strategic value. Of course, once you've aligned all the things we've been doing to the strategy, improvement is inevitable. And that's why, in as much as the standards support the benefits, it is through a very holistic implementation. You don't choose to say, no, for us, we shall excel at risk management. Every time you're doing risk is perfect. When it comes to training, that's where you draw the line. Like train, no, they know what they're doing. So when you do it holistically, then improvement is inevitable. Next slide, please. For the common pitfalls, run through quickly because I already mentioned them. For the management review held once a year, remember we are having our internal audits. being done periodically, and we are a multi-site company. So you also can't wait for a whole year for management to take decisions on improvements regarding health and safety, improvements regarding, say, management of environmental aspects. So, like we proposed in the internal audit program, it should be commensurate with the intervals of frequency. Sometimes some companies, and also what would recommend for private distributors limited, is to have these meetings spread out across the whole year. That is also acceptable. So the final one is just to, make decisions, give resources, and then drive improvement. For senior management attendance, now this is something you may not see as a requirement anywhere in the standard, but for any experienced auditor, the facilitators you've had a very good caliber facilitators. All of them are lead auditors. They would see that if at all a management review is meant for top management, and they're the accountable people, and you find the attendance list has acting, that's really an indicator that the commitment is not there. And then, of course, the improvement would be dedicated leadership and attendance. It's also very key now that we are looking at 45,001 that we have workers' representatives, if they exist, attend this meeting. They shake leaders, safety manager, quality assurance manager, environmental management manager. They should be part, if possible. And that's still the beauty about the standards. Integration makes the silos, and that way you can have a holistic journey for improvement. Then ignoring or forgetting previous management review actions. This is when you decided to shelve them, and for what you're implementing is a linear process. Next time, you just start from, say, thin air. So you're supposed to start with the previous actions and see how far we've pushed them and whether we are ready to take on the next ones. That is the improvement cycle. Then incomplete agenda and scattered meeting evidence. We talked about the environmental aspects. The agenda should be tailored to what is in the standards. Next slide, please. For the takeaways, this is just a summary of what we've talked about. The holistic implementation of this clause will ensure that we measure what matters. And I'll keep on emphasizing in that you don't have to be in top management for you to contribute towards improvement. My contribution could be getting the correct reading, and then you'll have a domino effect or a ripple effect all the way to top management. So we measure what matters, we analyze and don't just collect data. If it is shelved, it's as good as not collected. You'll have it as evidence, but then you'll continue to be plagued with things like, say, half-baked, say, audit programs, tools that are not calibrated, and things like that. Then finally, using audits and management review to test effectiveness. Like I said, it is a good thing, and anyone as committed as we are should be enthusiastic about improvement. Remember, this is not a culture you live in the company, which you may say live tomorrow, but it becomes a part of you. That's that quality culture. And then finally, it's what turns performance into action. So at the end of the day, if you're measuring right, following the structure, you'll see the benefits. You stop asking, say, ambiguous answers. I see people working every day, but we are not getting, say, results. I see people working every day, but we're not having incidents are not going down. What would the issue be? Look at the data. If it's a bad result, the auditors go dissect the process. And if at all we all have the improvement culture, it becomes very easy. Then next slide. There should be a gentleman over there pondering over something. For the internal audit, we've looked at the few challenges that we usually face. And for the management review, Joanna, you could help me there.
Yeah, sure.
No, if at all
just allow us that we are going to handle this question and after take our break, then we shall be back. However, reaction. Yeah, that slide. We also had a question come in from someone, Michael, asking, kindly break down on who should sit in the management review meeting. As you think about that, to our audience, what are some of the challenges you have faced with implementation of these clauses in your organization as regards internal audit and management review? Let's engage in the chat. What are some of those challenges that you've been able to face with implementation of these clauses in your organization as regards the internal audit and management review? I believe right from the classes we had from Monday, we should keep the engagements coming in. I'd love to see your engagements. Yes, I have some coming in, not getting support from the company and taking it for granted. Thank you so much, Rose. In availability for the management review, and they do show up, they don't stay until the end. There's also one telling us there's a poor attitude. So basically, we can see sometimes the management is really not taking this serious. For many on that are engaging, don't worry, we are not giving companies, so it's strictly confidential. You just be able to, state your challenges because it's going to help us be able to learn and see how we can improve. There's another saying, poor attitude. Most managers dodge the internal audits. They mostly delegate. Thank you so much for that. Access to information as an internal auditor. Keep the engagements coming in. We also have the process owners failing to provide the right evidence. Usually quality, environment, safety are often seen as responsibilities for particular departments. Let's keep them coming. Many times the management float in the entire implementation as they always delegate to the juniors, hence lack of their full commitment. Darren, I think you are hearing all that. Then someone says some do not want issues documented for effective tracking. Every one of them wants peace and green dashboards while hazards go unreported. Yes, we also have negative attitude from Ibrahim. Poor knowledge from top management. Yeah, we have a question again also coming in, Darren. Should a management review always be held after an internal audit? Or it can be done before the internal audit? Speaking, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am here. And thank you so much for the active participation. I love the Friday energy.
Yeah.
And I see George Komunda is also on the. So I'll start with Michael. Michael said breakdown of who should attend the management review meeting. Ideally, it goes without saying that top management should and must attend this management review meeting for the following obvious reasons. You are accountable as a leader, and when you are being assigned the, say, objectives, at the end of the day, it is your mandate to deliver them. Then secondly, there's top management, goes without say. Then remember, this is now an integrated management system. If we didn't have 45,001, the standard on occupational health and safety, then top management alone would have been sufficient. But now we are forced to have workers' representatives as part of these meetings. Because remember, we are driving improvement throughout the entire organization. And like I said, there are some key personnel, the managers in charge of health and safety, or the in charge, the one of the environment, and then the one also of quality assurance. For an organization as big as PDL, these would be distinct roles. For the smaller companies, you could have a management, they call them management representatives, who handles all the three. This usually happens in consultancies. But for an organization as big as this, having so many multinational compliance obligations, that person has to be there. And now, climate in the management review meeting shouldn't be operation focused. It should be strategic. And that's why we said we align it to the strategic objectives. So that should be It's the intent of the management review, because the management system is the engine that is driving your performance. If that is clear. And the issue of managers say, after this, I think we shall go for the break. Managers dodging the internal audits. If that one happens, some are very tactical. They extend their leave, they fall sick. And then on the other hand, what facilitates this culture is that you find the assigned junior is so enthusiastic to step in the shoes and then perform, you get. But like I said, it has to be commitment from the top. As soon as the audit program is rolled out, the trained internal auditors make contact with the auditees, then they agree to a very suitable schedule. If at all you already had prior planned engagements, we wait for you, as long as it's within our program, because it's monitored at the end of the day. Then they should attend, so that the corrective actions and the corrections are given the priority they require. If at all the manager doesn't have visibility of these things, trust me, they will never move. Unless you're implementing what they call total quality management. This would be a philosophy that fosters the bottom-up improvement. In absence of that, then they have to attend, because it's predominantly top-down. Then access to information that is criminal. The auditors are empowered to access all information. If they are trained, there are so many things they do to ensure confidentiality. They sign the NDAs, and at the end of the day, they are appointed by management. So they are trusted people. And they also help you improve. Just imagine you hide something from the auditor, and then an external audit comes from the Environmental Management Authority, and it's a major breach on your end. That would be very unfortunate, because you would have missed an opportunity to improve internally, and then it comes at a point whereby it's like too late. Then, of course, particular departments thinking that the implementation of corrective actions is for only the internal audit team. Now, for that one, there's a way of designing it into the system. If you're using scorecards for performance evaluation and they're saying incentives, you just add it to the things you're monitoring or the things you're evaluating. Corrective actions for every department. And then that way, they'll be forced to also attend the internal audits. If it's managers, it should be a KPI that you must attend a management review meeting. If you don't, you're not scoring. If there's an incentive, then they're missing out on that. If at all there is no incentive, we can also design, say, like a reprimand. That is for the individual, not the process. Need to be very careful there. So yes, thank you very much for the active participation. We are going to take a short break. Joanna will help us through. Then when we come back, we shall look at improvements very shortly. Then we have the discussion. Thanks.
Yes, surely. It's exactly 8:08. So allow me. I can see our host is on. I'll give him to be able to tell us something within this break. Mr. Ronald, I hope I've not bombarded you. Yes. But yes, thank you so much for the engagements. Just keep your questions coming in. It is our last day. And yes, I can see we are all optimistic, which is very good. And we are still getting a whole pack of a lot of insights and, opening our mind. Don't feel bad that management may not be giving you time. Like the facilitator told us, it's not always the bad things. We can always look at the good side to see how to improve. So allow me invite our host to be able to give us something within our break as you take your cup of tea, cup of coffee, stretch a bit, because your health and fitness matters a lot. Yes, enjoy your break. We shall be back at exactly 8:17.
All right. Good evening to you all across Eastern Africa or wherever you're attending from around the world. I'm Ronald Bette. I'm so happy to have you on this webinar. We started on Monday and we have been pushing on till today.
And it's pleasantly surprising to see how this has turned out, because we have never done this before, and doing it the first time and having it garner such engagement and such participation just leaves us speechless. And we are grateful to God that we have been able to deliver this kind of webinar, the first of its kind in Eastern Africa. I wanted to submit, for those of us who are still online, some anecdote that I've realized regarding management review meetings. So you realize that in life, most times people will fear things that they have not done before. Just like some of you may be so afraid of using Excel beyond simple formulas, you find that you're barely scratching the surface of Excel. So sometimes I think top management may not be resistant to management review meetings. The reason why they are sending that officer to represent them in the management review meeting is not that they are against it or that they are too busy for it. It's sometimes that they have never had an ISO management review before. So they even don't know what is going to be expected of them and what good looks like. Yeah. They don't know about management review meetings as well as they know about business review meetings. So that to me is an opportunity for us to find creative ways to inspire, to educate, and to urge our top management to make time for this and appreciate it, because they are experts in business management. They run profitable companies, and they would use. You probably think it's obvious. This should be their role in terms of quality. They should do this in terms of environment. They should do this, but those competencies were not part of you becoming CFO or you becoming MD. They didn't require you to know safety management or to know quality management or to know environmental management for that matter. Yeah. But now you find yourself, you are in charge of operations at prime distributors, and you have to deliver on those requirements as well. So the long and short of it, I'm saying, find creative ways to engage management. One of those creative ways that has worked for me is that if you plan to discuss some QHSC issue in the management meeting, or let's say in this case as a management review, and if this issue is emanating from the department of a specific manager, it's good to engage them before the meeting and let them know what the issue is, let them know what proposed control you are going to propose in the meeting, and get their feedback at that stage. So whether it is an issue that pins them or an issue that improves their department, having that pre-engagement with them will mean that when in the management meeting, when you go there and you stand up and you present the issue, you are going to secure their support and they are going to support you. What I have learned is top management, that top management, that top manager that you think about right now at your workplace, the version of them in the management meeting is very different from the version of them when you're just one-on-one with them in their office. When you go one-on-one with them in their office with these issues, if they are the ones who are responsible, most times they will open up to you, they'll listen to your challenge, and you'll work out something. But if you go in the management meeting when there are other fellow managers and then you start, it will be very hard for you to progress. So that is something I can share from my experience that I think we can all benefit from as far as having management engaged on issues of QHSC improvement is concerned.
Wow, thank you so much. That has really been, very exciting. It reminds me of a statement that as once told that I personally live with sometimes. What you think is what you get. So most times, if you get to think of the positive side, you get the positivity out. But if you, before you actually approach this manager, you're actually thinking that, man, he's actually going to tell me to go as an officer, then indeed that is what you're going to get, because it's basically what you've been thinking all through. So thank you so much, Ronald, for that whole dose of wisdom. I think we saw an article, actually, I think in New Vision, Ronald wrote an article about the management systems. So you can see, even despite writing the articles, he still was able to see how to, give out this program. So let's not sleep on this knowledge. Let's not all sleep on, this information. It's very good for us to take on and practice, regardless of our companies or even at home. You can get to audit your kitchen. You can get to audit, your living room and see, what can I do about it? What can I improve? And, it gets to, bring about that whole improvement. Paul, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, thank you, Joanna. His explanation is very practical. I was very happy to hear that explanation. I'm sure most of us have related. Mr. Ronald, from your article, you mentioned about how ISO can affect a business and make it even gain clients. We have seen from our attendees that we're having so many people from different professions. There's a thought that the ISO is only known for maybe QHSE. Now, how can this ISO masterclass standard help the rest of the attendees? We have lecturers in here. We have business people. We have consultants. They may not even be for the ISO standard. You came up with this ISO masterclass. Tell us, what was your dream, and what was the intention, and what do you have planned for us next?
What do I have planned for us next? I think that for now is a secret. But the whole idea of this ISO masterclass goes back to the plan, do, check, act cycle. So, irrespective of your profession, whether you're a lecturer, you're a manager, you're a lawyer, wherever you are, you may not be familiar with quality management, with health and safety, or environment for that matter. But the core concept that we have been teaching through the week is that for you to begin to see meaningful improvement in the context of an organization, you need to be able to plan, do what you plan to do, check how well you are doing it, or identify areas of improvement, and then act on those new directions. So that once you go around that cycle, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be quality. It doesn't have to be health and safety. It could be your personal growth. It could be your journey to fitness. It could be your relationship with your partner. It could be your relationship with God. It could be anything. The concept is, after you know where you are, which is close for, you make a plan, you do what you have planned. Once you implement what you have planned, you check how well you have done it, and then you act on the improvements. As you keep going around that cycle, you will begin to see improvement in your life. Again, just like weight loss, you don't lose 10 kilos in a day, okay? But if you consistently stick to the plan, okay, which is made based on the knowledge of your specifics, you'll begin to see improvement in your health and wellness. So that's really the idea. And all of us who have attended this, if we go ahead and implement them in our organizations or in our lives, we should begin to see improvements. And these improvements are not drastic most times, but they are slow and incremental. And that's really the core at the bottom of this. And for those of us who are looking to gain knowledge as professionals, I'm very sure if you're new to these things, this week has most likely given you a good foundation on which you can now take on 1 or 2 courses, and before you know it, you are either consulting together with a more experienced expert on your way to being an independent consultant. So it is a win-win for all of us who have been able to sacrifice their time to learn and challenge us. And for us, the presenters, just the fact that we're able to conceive this idea, commit our resources and our time and our best to deliver it, just going through that process is we have had to learn so much. So we have also experienced growth. For example, certain limits of Zoom that we didn't know about. There are certain techniques that we didn't know about, but the fact that we have been able to do this, we have also learned something, which maybe without this thing, would have never known that we don't know how to do it. Yeah, you know, things that you don't know that you don't know. Now we knew, you never know what you don't know that you don't know. And for us adults, most times, that's where we lose. We think what we know is enough. Someone is going to, as a present, they're going to give you a book. And they believe that book has the knowledge that you need because they know you personally and they know that by you reading that book, indeed, you will learn and grow. But you are never going to read that book. You're going to receive it, you're going to thank them, and you're going to keep that book in your library or somewhere in your wardrobe, and you're never going to read it. So the fact that we did this for us, it took us out of our comfort zone to a lane where we discovered that there are skills we needed to develop. Yeah, personally, I'm satisfied with what the week has served me and what I've been able to chew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronald. Ronald, one more question before you go.
Thank you so much.
Are you going to be at the conference?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, I already paid fully, not just me, even some my work colleagues. I think we are probably about 6 work colleagues coming.
If you're taller than Ronald, please see you at the conference. We can
surely. Yeah, I don't know if our facilitator is back.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Paul, kindly share the screen. See, some questions came in through. Yes, we shall be able to get feedback on that. But let's allow our facilitator be able to complete this in the minimal time so that we can tackle those remaining questions. Just keep your questions coming in right from the chat. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed your break. Over to you, Darren.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed my cup of coffee and also listening into the discussions and the wisdom from Ronald.
Awesome.
So let's proceed to the next slide, which should be the line of sight from clause 9 to clause 10.
Yes, we're good to go.
All right. So we did the planning Monday, which was the foundation. That was context of the organization and then leadership. Then we did the planning, the brain, then support, which was the engine. Then yesterday we did all we could execute in accordance with the plans. And now just before the break, we exhausted the performance evaluation, which was to do with, first of all, looking at the results, how we are getting them, what we're using to get them, what we are doing with them, and then also on the other side, trying to see how these results are affecting, first of all, our customers, our compliance obligations. This is just a watered down language of the standards. Then finally, the internal audit, where we check why these results appear the way they were, because they're not appearing from thin air. There's a process that is behind them. There are people doing these things, there's software, all the resources that we put in, the frameworks and the like. And then we left it at a point where we had undertaken a management review, which stirred up a lot of very good discussions, more so in the practice versus theory, what you order versus what you receive. And now we are looking at improvement. And up until this point, we've been implementing a linear approach to the clauses. That's why you see we had a start, and now we are moving all the way towards improvement. So improvement only makes sense, which is clause 10, only makes sense if you did something and evaluate what you did. So under improvement, we have the general requirements, we have the non-conformity and corrective actions, then we have incident investigation and management. Some of these we've talked about because the two go hand in hand. That's why we called it the future. So next slide. This is just to demonstrate to you that there are still things you do on a daily, but we don't want you to only improve your incident reporting and management. No, it should be holistic improvement. That's what the standards, that's the value you get. So the high level structure, which you're seeing in this table, we have the sub clauses under clause 10 for the different standards. So the first one, which is general, for 9001, we're looking at quality management for products and services. How do we improve? How do we reduce, say, the damaged products that are delivered to the customers? How do we improve? You can improve by enhancing your reputation or reducing on the complaints. Then, because you're looking at customer satisfaction, customer is the boss. Then for environment, how do we improve our environmental performance? And I'll repeat it again. Our measurements, the internal audits, the management review meeting decisions are very key at this particular point. So that, as you will see, when we go for the next cycle, we are doing things differently. And then later on, when we come back to measure, things are much, much, much better. For the OSH, same story. What we are all improving, but now another aspect of improvement, which is occupational health and safety. We are looking at the policy. We are looking at the commitments in there, and we want to see 0 LTIs, 0 incidents, 0 accidents. And of course, that is based on the decisions that were made in the management review, based on the facts that we provided from the internal audits, and then also the measurements that we did of the things we had planned, we did according to the plan, something like that. 10.1 is on improvement opportunities, which cut across. Then 10.2 is non-conformity and corrective action for quality management and environmental management. Then for health and safety, the product is, we are the product, we are the customer. So it's to do with incident and non-conformity management, then corrective action. The flow for all these three is ideally the same. What changes is the detail of what you're looking at. So at the end of the day, we have a harmonized corrective and preventive action process. Then lastly, there is a very interesting clause, which is clause 10.3. It is shockingly very brief in all the standards, apart from 45, which is more explicit to do with the health and safety of your employees. We could go to the next slide. Yes, before and also in the discussions, we've talked about the correction and corrective actions. And of course, these are things that already appear in our internal audits. But then, since they're made to improve, you're supposed to look at them in a positive way, that when you treat the root causes, you're sure that this will not happen again. If it doesn't happen again, you have the liberty to redistribute your resources and efforts as a company. So just briefly on the requirements of clause 10.2 on non-conformity and corrective action. Non-conformity is a deviation from the requirements of the standard. The easiest, which is still lingering in our minds, if we are not doing management review meetings, and somehow we are only looking at the operational and say business meetings, that is a non-conformity, because the standard requires you to, and then it's like interpreting a contract where there's a shall, you must do. So that would be a non-conformity. So when it happens, Prime Distributors Limited is required, first of all, to react to that non-conformity, take action to control and correct it, then deal with the consequences. Remember the example we had of the leaking tin of paint? If at all it happens to, say, overflow and spill, we are supposed to react to that situation. Then once it spills, you're supposed to use the appropriate means you have. Yesterday, they talked about emergency spill kits. And then deal with the consequences. If at all it causes any other issue, then you deal with it. Then after that, you evaluate the need for taking action, review and determine causes, then determine the extent analysis for all the sites. This is what we discussed previously on corrective action. So for everything we do, since the standard requires you to have things done in a structured way, in I think clause 7.5 on documented information, we must have a harmonized procedure on handling our non-conformances. And it shouldn't be something segmented, that we are having some quality control under, say, 8, which was operational. Then you're having now these non-conformances that appear in clause 10. It should, as much as possible, try to address the issues of the 3 standards. If at all it's an incident, what was the impact on the quality aspects? Did it have any impact on the environment? Did it have any impact on the safety? That way, like we said, when you start improving, you improve in the best way possible. Then we have the root cause analysis reports. This is meant to be a summary slide because I was sure we had already discussed these things. The root cause analysis report is one that gives you confidence that what you're treating is actually the root cause or the reason as to why something happened. There are different methods for undertaking the root cause. And of course, now this would maybe form part of the training of the implementers of these standards. There's the Fishbone, Ishikawa. There's the commonest, which is the 5 whys. Then the corrective and corrective actions, that one we discussed. And everything we mentioned here, if it's a report, you must have documented evidence. If it's not there, you did nothing. There should be evidence. Then the trackers, and then closure of the recommendations. So the non-conformities could be major, minor, or sometimes opportunities for improvement. For example, if you didn't do a management review, that is, it's like borderline major, because top management is meant to take decisions based on what they've done so they can improve. If you haven't done anything, then trust me, you're not going to improve. It's still business as usual for you. You're as good as not certified. And then the minor would be, say, you've had your management review, then you discuss the environmental aspects, or say lost time injuries or the damaged products, but you didn't trend. You didn't discuss the trend, so you don't know whether you're improving, whether you're treasure hunting. That's a nosedive. That could be minor. Minor means it can be corrected, say, within 21 days. So you have the reports, they're in existence. All you have to do is trend and analyze. Then lastly, the opportunities for improvement are meant for us to do things better. So the opportunities for improvement are those things where, say, we are complying and everything is going swimmingly, but we could do better. So, say, things to do with what? Attendance of the management review meetings, the rigor, then the way we are doing things, basically. So, improvement is also a process, and it starts from 9. And that's why I'll not get tired of repeating this, but we need to take the internal audits, performance monitoring, customer feedback, compliance evaluation, and then the incident reports as serious as we can, because it is the starting point for improvement. Where you have the most headache, That's where the biggest opportunity for improvement or innovation is. Then after that, we classify, like I've taken you through. It could be major, minor, the incidents. Those ones were also taken through previously in the due course of the week. And containing and correcting, we need a procedure for managing our non-conformities. Then the root cause analysis, that one I've talked about. Okay, yes, there's the 5 whys here, the fishbone, etc. Maybe the reason as why the 5 why is the most common is that it gets to engage with, it resonates with everyone. For example, if I came late for the presentation, first why would be, why did you come late? Then I answer that why. I had some issues with the internet. Why were there issues with the internet? Because the bandwidth happened. Why did the bandwidth happen? Until you get to the 5th why. So it's believed that by the time you get to the 5th why, you're at the root cause. But not all problems can be treated using the 5 whys. That's why you have the fishbone, there is the PDCA, and so many more. And then of course you verify the root cause. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, no. So from the root cause analysis, now we look at the corrective action, which we've talked about. First, we would have already done the correction, which is to deal with the internet issue I had. So I consulted.
Darren, just to cut you short a bit, they've requested that you go again on the opportunity for improvement and observations. What's the difference?
Opportunity for improvement
Observations.
And observations. So for the observations, if you look at the stages of auditing, the observation, you're still during the audit, you're undertaking the audit. That's where the observation is. So the observation could be, we are in an audit. I've come to, say, the assigned junior to undertake an audit on, say, training in HR. So since they are the assigned junior, they don't know so much of where the records of training are kept. Now the responsible manager, and this is cute to drive the point forward. The responsible manager is away, and these records are on, say, their laptop. So the observation would be, if I requested for the documentation and they cannot retrieve it immediately, that is something. It's not yet a finding, but I can note it somewhere. If at all after 30 minutes, they've still not presented the documents, then I get interested, but still an observation. Then they may excuse themselves, go call their manager. Manager says, I don't have access to the laptop and what. Now that's when it becomes a finding. And now, of course, the finding requires documented information or evidence to qualify it as a non-conformance or conformity to the standard. On the other side, the opportunity for improvement would be, in as much as I requested for the documentation, this junior officer, the acting one, went and got a file, but in order to get the file, these were all hard copies, took them like 5 minutes. They presented the evidence, but there is a better way of presenting and also, say, preserving that documentation. So the opportunity for improvement would be, why don't you scan these hard copies, shelve them somewhere on a document management system? It's not that what you're doing is wrong and it's not failing, it's failing, but you could do it better. That is the opportunity for improvement. And the auditors, any good auditor, should not only look at the bad side, but also to add value to every process, to add value. Things are being done this way. There should be an improvement. I hope that's clear. So yes, we looked at corrective action. Now there's something very important here, which is verifying effectiveness. So verifying effectiveness is to ensure that The solution we've provided to treat the root cause is actually treating it. It's no longer to do with the root cause. We've ascertained that this is caused by maybe too much delegation, laxity in the management approach. But now, the solution we've proposed to treat this root cause, that's where the verification comes in. The same way you may miss the root cause at first, then it reoccurs second time, then you get it. Now, verification follows the same approach. But since we need to have evidence, usually this comes in form of follow-up audits, or you follow the corrective and preventive action tracker. Then now lastly, like I said, clause 10.3 is a very brief clause in all the standards, apart from 45,000. And here it's all about learning and improving. So having done everything else, this is where we get to know that we've improved. And the type of evidence you may provide may not be directly, say, like a root cause or an improvement report, but it can be sometimes seen the more compliments or reduced, say, more compliments, reduced complaints, increase in the market share, and corrections, corrective actions. Those are all evidences that you're improving. The two that are usually missed out on are innovation and breakthrough. Innovation and I think breakthrough improvement. So you find the companies that are implementing standards just for the sake, they'll just stop at, say, corrective action. Then the ones that are leaving the standards, like would want a PDL to be, are the ones that go a notch further to go, say, with innovation, breakthrough, improvement, sometimes reorganizing. You may find the struggles you're having are systemic. By the time you're implementing the management standards, people already have a culture that is ingrained in them. So sometimes it calls for reorganization. You have to try as much as possible to, of course, through objective evidence, to prove to management that it's time for us to shuffle things a bit. And of course, the outcomes would be fewer non-conformities and incidents, better performance, stronger compliance, higher customer satisfaction, and good enough we know what now all these mean and how to interpret what they are, and then also how to gather the information. Then safer, greener, and more sustainable operations. The next slide is what we've been doing up until now, and simply because we are just starting the journey. We've just designed this management system. We started from Monday looking at the context. We did the leadership requirements. We went to the brain, which was planning. There was the engine, support with the human resource and the like. Then we did, that was yesterday. And now we've evaluated what we did through the results and the like. And then now improvement. So up until now, we'll be ready for a certification, say, audit. If I had access to the emojis, I would clap for you. But that's not the end of the story. So in theory, this is what it looks like. But if you could go to the next slide. Yes, if we are on the next slide.
Yes,
practice,
when the certification readiness.
Yes, this is what it looks like. So it's not a walk in the park like it was preached, and we liked the feedback from people, because implementation of these standards is it requires a holistic interpretation of the clauses. There are so many cross references, and that's why this Deming cycle, or the plan, do, check, act, has leadership at the center. So if leadership is at the center, it's upon them. It's a must. They have to be involved in the day-to-day. So you do the planning, support, leadership is in the know. Then at the end of the day, once we're done with the reporting and improvement, still it's upon leadership. But now, most importantly, is that the act/improvement arrow coming from down clause 10, which we've just done, improvement, that now signals that to us that we're going into the next planning cycle. If we are going into the next planning cycle, we don't park the things we've looked at in performance evaluation and improvement, but they should form part of our next cycle, so that by the time we come back to say the doing and the performance evaluation shouldn't have any previous findings reoccur. It is something I wanted to point out, and then also to visually show you why these things usually come up. So if leadership is at the center and somehow they keep dodging, the system may not work, and no one will know why it's not working. That's when the blame game comes in. But ideally, leadership has to take charge, also for these management standards to be effectively implemented. And of course, these are the clauses. We have the inputs on the far left, then the outputs on the far right. So the more advanced implementation would be, how many times have you rotated this PDCA? We could have say certification, which usually runs for 3 years. And PDL, Prime Distributors Limited, has rotated this PDCA, say thrice, for the 3 years. And then there is a comparative organization, which also got certified, but they're still stuck on the other linear. You remember the linear one, the previous one? They are stuck on that linear. Plan, do, check, act, finish management review, pack things, then wait for the next cycle. You panic, pick up things, patch up. There'll be a very big difference. So I just wanted to at least explain the interrelation of these standards and requirements and how you actually get value. Because if you don't rotate the PDCA or the Deming wheel, that's why it's called a wheel, you have to rotate it. If you don't, you'll get certified, and unfortunately, there's a risk of not attaining the benefits. It's 8:51. Joanna, you could go to the next slide, which concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Darren. That has been so wonderful. Indeed, we have had a wonderful Friday night. We can see participants have been sharing their questions. This has been really a fruitful week, power-packed, and I know it's one to stay in memory. I can see reactions coming in, very good reactions. We are very, very happy to see them coming in. Well done. I must congratulate you all for coming this far, right from Monday to the 5th day, which is today, Friday. Did you ever think that, yes, you'd finish strong? Indeed, we have finished strong. And yes, it took the resilience, the commitment. I'd love to congratulate you all for thus far, coming this far. For those who have questions, keep them coming. We may not be able to handle all the questions right here because of time, but believe me that we are going to be able to address your questions on the social media platforms. Remember, we have been sharing the links right from day one. We had a link of day 1 shared, day 2 shared, day 3 shared. Look out for the link for day 4 and day 5. Do not miss out. We also have a WhatsApp group that has been having some engagements for having the links shared. And all your questions are going to be worked on. Please don't forget, we value your feedback. We are going to be sharing a link in the chat and also in the WhatsApp group for you to be able to, it's just a few minutes to just click on that link and give us your feedback so that we may know, how have you found these sessions? What would you want us to improve? There was a question on if at all we have audited the value for this, masterclass. And indeed, one of the things that you see, we are having already a feedback form link. But how do we get your feedback? It's by you being able to put in your feedback in this form. So make sure when you get the link, you actually be able to get some time and put in your feedback in this link. Don't just let it go. Yes, over to you, Paul. Let us know. I see big appreciation to facilitators. Our facilitators, yes, are on. Big appreciation to you, Gladys, Dennis, Mary, Nashon, Darren. You've all done well. And indeed, our host, the organizer, we also thank you so much for, coming up with, this idea. Indeed, when ideas come up, we are all able to benefit. Paul, let us know what's on your mind.
Yes, Joanna, thank you. Thanks. I actually wanted to just give them a round of applause. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to our organizers and our facilitators for the job well done for the week. 5 days of ISO Masterclass. Thank you, team. And with that, before we invite our organizer, Joanna, you'll do the honors of inviting him to close the masterclass week. I would like to remind everyone that these are the names of the facilitators and the team. Go ahead, follow them on the social media platforms. These are professionals that provide services. Go ahead, inbox them. This is just a tip of the iceberg. There is much more to learn. Remember, in our profession, we learn more by connecting, we learn from each other, and we can help push each other up the ladder. There are Ronald Bette, he was the organizer. You can just type his name right there. We have Gladys Wanjao, that is from Kenya. She's a lead consultant and also a service provider for the ISO standards. We have Dennis Oyeng, who has actually worked with provide ISO certification here in Uganda. We have Mary Goretti Akelo. She's a QHSE practitioner, many years of experience. And we have Nashon Mudala, also a consultant from Tanzania, and he provides also consultation services. And Darren Kwanason, also a professional QA professional in Uganda with 10 years plus experience. You had his testimony. Other than that, I also want to take this opportunity to talk about my co-moderator, Joanna Amanyire. If you need an HSC advisor, she's right there. That is if you have a better deal than what she has. Thank you, Joanna, for your time. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And
thank you
Paul
to Paul.
Chana, peace out. Over to you.
Surely. Thank you so much, Paul. Indeed, thank you so much for making this work easy and for the whole collaboration. Yes, like Paul has said, you don't have to go and look for the wrong people and start crying. You have all the facilitators here who can be able to give you the best services. Reach out to them. They are indeed on the chat, and indeed they're also on the WhatsApp groups. Without wasting time, allow me to invite our organizer, Ronald Bette. Ronald, yes, I'd love to invite you to be able to give us the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joanna. I would like to thank everyone who was involved in this organization. We started this about 2 to 3 weeks ago. So we had an intensive 2 weeks of planning. Remember our planning, checking and acting. So we had about 2 weeks of planning. This week we have done what we planned. And I would like to thank the facilitators, Gladys, who came in on Monday. Then we had Dennis on Tuesday, Terry on Wednesday, and on Thursday yesterday, and we have had Darren today. And they have delivered with excellence. They have delivered high quality. I believe we can all see what has been submitted, and we can all reap the benefits where we are. I would like to thank you, the attendees. When we planned this, we were estimating about 50 to 100 people attending, but we have drawn crowds of 150 to 200. As I speak now, we have people who have registered for this webinar from the beginning. Over 800 people have registered their interest to attend and have attended on one of the days. So you can see the impact that much as we have done this in 1 week, that we have been able to impact 800 people out there. And this content is going to be available on LinkedIn and YouTube, and you're able to refer back to it for as much as you want, as many times as you want. So let's take this knowledge and let it make us better people. I need to mention that we have a survey. Remember, when you plan, you do, then you check yourself. So we have a survey form. This survey form is meant to help us to achieve 2 things. One, how did we do in this 1 week and where can we improve? Okay, that is one. The second is how much more can we serve you better as an attendee? You've attended this training for 1 week. Maybe there's more that we can do for you. Use this form to guide us on how we can serve you better, either as an individual or as a group. We are looking forward to your feedback. The link has been provided in the group, in the WhatsApp group. Please I strongly urge you to spend some time and fill in. As a reward for completing that survey, I will be providing you with a template pack, an ISO IMS template pack for Prime Distributors Limited, which covers all the processes, procedures, policies, checklists, registers, forms, everything that you take to implement ISO management system at Prime Distributors Limited. Documents will be in Word form, so you can take them and edit them as you see fit. This will be our reward for you completing and submitting that assessment form. This comes with probably about 120 documents. You're getting yourself value that is more than 1,000 US dollars, a reward for filling that form and as a reward for participating in this webinar. As I close, I'm going to mention one thing. Continuous improvement means you're actively doing something. You cannot improve on zero. If you scored zero, if you did zero, 1% of zero is zero. If you're to improve zero by 5%, you still get zero. So the message here is, with what you have learned, little or the much that you have learned, do something. Don't just say, oh, this one has been inspiring. I have really enjoyed it. Good. I think I need to share it with one. So no, don't do that. Take what you have learned and do something with it. Do something that can benefit you, can benefit your organization. And that's how you'll be able to account for all these evenings that you dedicated. With that, I'd like to thank you all. I'm Ronald Bette. I've been the organizer. Find me on LinkedIn. Let's engage. Immediately you leave this session, not next week, go to LinkedIn. Search Ronald Bette. Find me. Let's engage. Let's connect. Let's collaborate. We have a lot more that we can do together because technology now does not limit us. Yeah, whether you are in Zimbabwe, whether you are in Korea, whether you're in Germany, it doesn't matter. Technology brings us together on the same screen, like it is doing now. Thank you so much, and back to you, our host, to properly close the session.
Wow, thank you so much, Ronald. Indeed, it has been insightful. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who has been able to participate, we are so happy and so excited that you have come thus this far. We are going to close this and look out. You never know what's next. But how will you know what's next? And how will you benefit from what's next? By you getting to fill that feedback form. We value your feedback because your feedback will help us to know your next opportunity or the next engagement coming up. So click that link, get into the group, engage, and indeed, go enjoy your weekend. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.